use the word journey. It is quite a journey, right? Even from the one slide that I showed of all the different actors and different organizations. I mean, that's already starting with Nandan as an inventor and researcher, but of course he came from southern India, he came to western Sweden, and when you read the case study, if you read it, you'll find that there's a lot of serendipity like there is in everything. I think that's the fun part of listening to stories. He's a very knowledgeable person, but then he's in an environment, and because of that environment, certain questions are asked to him. It leads him in certain ways to think about things, but then but then you have an idea, but how do you move forward with that? And now you need to meet certain people that help you entrepreneurially, and then because Sweden has the teacher's exemption, your research is not owned by the university, so you need to probably put this into some legal entity to get going, which you see they created this early company to get going, but then from there they moved it into other company structures as they started to mature, and then of course you need help, and where are you going to get that from? It's going to be expensive. So the Chalmers School of Entrepreneurship, students step in, they learn what it's like to work with entrepreneurial technology-based firms, but they also provide a lot of help digging in and testing lots of different ideas, right? Because this is the thing, you have a technology that in the end looks, oh, this is obvious, we should license it to these people and we should sell it to these people, but it takes a long time for that to become obvious. And it's very expensive if you hire people to try to figure this out. So the idea of having students at the Chalmers School of Entrepreneurship go through and refine and try different business models and come up with something that has an opportunity to move forward, that can be an object for a new company, then Oxeon, right? And then get other funding to go forward from that. I think in these other companies serve a bit as holding companies. So Nandan had lots of other ideas there that were commercialized in others. So you could see you had this kind of portfolio approach. That's why I use the portfolio word so much. So I think that if you have an idea at a university, and whether you're in a system with a TTO or whether you have a teacher's exemption, at some point in time you're going to need a certain set of skills, right? You're going to need you need the IP, you're going to need some business help, and you're going to need some money. Mm-hmm. And you're probably going to need, these are going to come from different actors. So whether you start in one direction or the other, you kind of end up needing all these different actors and giving away equity to bring all these people together. So you might start in different ways, but you end up in a very similar way. So in Sweden, of course, instead of having the TTO being in charge now, you have to be a bit more entrepreneurial to set this up yourself. What's useful there, of course, is you have, by having the Chalmers School of Entrepreneurship and having a group of young, smart people focus on this, it's usually, I would say they were able to give it a lot more attention, almost a full year of dedicated attention, where TTOs often have so much workload to do that they don't have time for this. I'm not saying that it's a better model, I'm just saying that this is helpful in that way. And also maybe from a TTO perspective, you would think about either to license or to create a company. Here, you were able to think maybe in both ways. So I think, so the situation in Sweden is trickier in the sense that you have to be more entrepreneurial as a researcher, but it also opens up for more different types of ways to interact with people than just the TTO. So I think they both have their pluses and minuses, but in this case, I think it's maybe difficult to think it would have turned out as well had they not had these degrees of freedom. You have to think about the creation of the IP from the beginning with this broader approach. That helps you to understand. And that's why I argue for this intellectual asset approach, where you don't just see the technology as something that's going to be a product, but you see its constituent parts. If you can break it down, then you can see different objects. It's like you would like to build something with Lego and you turn the box upside down and only one thing falls out. You can't build too much. The more that you have to work with, the more you can see different combinations and possibilities. So by seeing the assets and controlling them in different ways, it allows you to come up with a portfolio of opportunities, as I say. And I think they did a good job. It's not that easy, and of course, you're always coming up with new ideas. So you tend to protect some of your ideas with one mentality, and then you come up with new commercial ideas later. Usually they can still be relatively aligned, but oftentimes you have to realign. And I think that was also another strength, that they kept this relationship between the IP thinking, what IP do we need as we keep moving in these different directions. From this IP perspective, and I know we're talking about the EPO is a sponsor of this session, but you want to have a portfolio, right? And of course, intellectual property flows into it. So if you can control your technology and be on the market, and then you can have a brand, then a lot of the value from having an exclusive position because of your patents or secrets will flow into the brand over time, right? So you need this interaction, because the brand can last forever, right? But the patents run out at certain times. Plus, you also need to keep innovating. But I would suggest that, especially in today's regime, that people not only patent, but they really think about how to create some important things secret, even if it is patentable. So I think you need to have both, because today, if you put all your eggs in one basket on the patent, there's lots of ways, especially in the United States, for trying to get around or invalidate patents. So you need to have something that you haven't exposed and written down and told everyone about that's important, that you also carry. Of course, carrying secrets around is a whole nother management challenge.
Absolutely.
But I think you need to think in this portfolio approach. You can't think that I have a patent, I'm good. Because if it's worth a lot of people are going to try to find a way to get around it, right? And you can see that even Oxeon had to deal with infringement situation. I think in these more hard tech cases, patents are critical to getting money. Now, I still think that venture capitalists look at lots of other things, but I think you definitely need to have patents. You need to show that you have some way of maintaining some level of exclusivity. Now, I'm sure nowadays they know that if this is really important, those patents will be put under stress. So it would be good to get out on the market quickly, build brands, get relationships. But I think that still nowadays, most VCs are looking. I mean, even if you watch Shark Tank on TV, they ask, do you have a patent? I'm not sure they know the ins and outs of everything's about patents, but they know that it would be nice to have one, right? So I think that you need to have one, and then I would argue, more than having a patent, you need to have an IP strategy, right? So what is it that how are you going to control and create exclusivity to decide to license, make your own products? What type of broad IP strategy do you need, given what you're trying to do and the competitive environment? For me, that's more important. And then it might be that you don't need one patent, you need 20 patents, or you need to keep things secret, or you need to have an open source strategy, or you need to focus on creating a lot of trademarks. So you should start out by understanding what you need based on what you're trying to achieve and who you're competing with, and go from there. That would be my thinking. But I still believe that VCs would like to tick that box. But I suggest give them more than that. Give them a whole strategy. To me, it seemed like a steady, journey of entrepreneurial learning. But I would say that the first obstacle was having, again, and I think most people can understand this, you have a technology, you know that it's better than other things, but you can't just kind of wave it and people come and buy it. You have to sell it, right? You have to figure out a way to do that. And in the beginning, you need money and you don't have much time. So how can you pragmatically solve the situation to generate money? So this kind of beachhead technique that you talked about, how could we license out to someone who's going to do something different from us to generate money, but also validate our product? At the same time, how could we move into earlier, like sporting goods areas, where we could again validate and make money to keep the ball rolling? So that was the first great idea, because if you said, well, I'm only want to go to aerospace and automotive right from the beginning, you're not going to go directly there. So learning that that's where you want to go, what journey do you need to get there? I think that was the first big thing to overcome. The second thing related to this, of course, is how do you then get into these industries? Once you've done sporting goods, how do you prove this? How do you get out there and convince people? And how do you get how do you find people who invest that will wait? You saw the timeline; it's quite long, right? The company was created in 2003. It's on Mars now. The technology probably not going to stay there. And and then of course that's great publicity. And how do you turn this in and get people in these major industries to buy into this technology, given that there's lots of other people working on this? And I think that is their big challenge now, to do that, and the patience of getting the investors to be patient to go for this big thing is, of course, an accomplishment in itself. So when it comes to strategic patent protection, I think it's important. This case illustrates patenting further along the value chain and protecting the applications of the technology close to the consumer market. This is to increase the scope of protection and build a comprehensive control position. Also, again, we need to build a portfolio. So we have a portfolio of assets, but we can also talk about a portfolio of control mechanisms. Here we combine patents, trademarks, and trade secrets to provide complementary protection, facilitating both exclusivity and licensing of the technology and the IP assets. From an IP management perspective, we found that it was very important to involve top managers in the patent portfolio building process, because this allowed to make sure that the patents that were being created were controlling the important assets that were linked to the key strategic direction of the company at all times, and didn't necessarily move in a different direction from where the company would move in a different direction from where they had patent protection. And then from a business perspective, from a marketing strategy, I think this case shows that capturing receptive niche markets to build sales and brand awareness is useful entry when you're moving into bigger, larger markets, which have high entry barriers and long lead times. It takes more time maybe than traditional investors are willing to wait for. So that's basically the Oxeon case in a nutshell.